Insulting Ohtani's reputation and playing a cowardly trick. MLB fines him and terminates his contract. Some things cannot be taken back. Not with an apology. Not with a statement released through the careful language of a publicist who understands how these situations need to be managed in public. Not with the passage of time that eventually softens most things in professional sports into something that can be filed away under the broad category of competitive intensity and left there. Some things, once done, exist permanently in the record of who a person is and what they were willing to do when they believed the moment gave them cover to do it. What the Pirates catcher did to Shohei Ohtani was caught on video. And what MLB did after reviewing that video is the kind of response that professional baseball does not arrive at quickly or lightly or without the full weight of institutional deliberation behind it. A warning. An ejection. A fine. And then the thing that nobody in that press room was prepared to hear when Dave Roberts and Shohei Ohtani sat down in front of the microphones. A terminated contract. The Pirates catcher had insulted Ohtani's reputation. He had played a trick that the people who saw it described with a word that kept returning across every account of what had happened regardless of which side of the field the person describing it was standing on. Cowardly. Not aggressive. Not intense. Not competitive in a way that crossed a line but could still be understood within the framework of what professional baseball produces when the temperature of a game exceeds what the ordinary boundaries of the sport can contain. Cowardly. Because what he had done was designed to be invisible. Designed to operate in the space between what the cameras typically catch and what they typically miss. Designed to land on Ohtani in a way that Ohtani could feel but could not immediately prove and that the surrounding environment could not immediately confirm. Except that a camera had been pointed at exactly the right angle. And the video existed. And MLB had reviewed it. The game itself had been competitive in the way that games between these two teams had consistently been competitive across this stretch of the season. The Pirates catcher had been behind the plate for all of it. In the position that places a catcher in closer sustained proximity to the opposing team's most dangerous hitter than any other defensive position on a baseball field. Every at-bat. Every pitch sequence. Every moment when the game paused long enough for the space between the plate and the batter's box to become something other than pure athletic competition. That proximity is supposed to be used for baseball. For reading swings. For calling pitches. For the accumulated intelligence of a catcher doing his job across 9 innings with the focus that the position demands. What the Pirates catcher used it for was different. The insults began quietly enough that the umpire working behind the plate did not catch them immediately. That was part of the design. Pitched at a volume and delivered with a timing that made them land on Ohtani without traveling far enough to reach the ears that would have responded to them officially. Professional athletes deal with trash talk. That is a reality of competitive sport that the rulebooks acknowledge by drawing a line between the ordinary verbal exchange of competition and something that crosses into conduct that the sport will not permit. The line is not always perfectly clear. The calls made at that line are not always consistent. There is a category of things said between competitors during games that the sport absorbs without formal response because the sport understands that human beings under competitive pressure say things that they would not say in calmer environments. What the Pirates catcher said to Ohtani did not exist in that category. It was not trash talk in the competitive sense. It was something directed at Ohtani's reputation. At things that existed outside the baseball game. At the person rather than the player. Delivered in the low deliberate tone of someone who understood exactly what they were saying and had chosen each element of it carefully. And then the trick. The video showed it clearly. The angle that captured it was not the primary broadcast camera. It was one of the field-level cameras that the production team uses for the close detail shots that appear between pitches and between at-bats. The kind of camera that is pointed at the plate area because the plate area contains the most concentrated action in a baseball game and the close detail of it makes for compelling television. On this occasion it captured something that was not intended to be compelling television. It was intended to be invisible. What the catcher did in the moment between the pitch being returned from the umpire and the next pitch being called took approximately 4 seconds. 4 seconds in the compressed rhythm of a baseball game where 4 seconds between pitches is unremarkable and draws no attention from anyone watching at normal speed. But the video, reviewed at the pace that the MLB investigation required, showed those 4 seconds with complete clarity. The trick was physical. Designed to affect Ohtani's comfort and concentration at the plate without leaving the kind of obvious evidence that an immediate umpire response required. The kind of thing that a player attempts when they have decided that the boundaries of competition do not apply to them in this particular moment and that the person they are directing it toward is unlikely to be able to prove what just happened. Ohtani stepped out of the batter's box. He looked at the catcher. Not with anger that performed itself for the cameras. With the specific quality of attention that a person directs at someone when they want that person to understand clearly that they are aware of exactly what just happened. The umpire did not see it in real time. But Ohtani's reaction was enough to draw the attention of the crew chief. Who asked questions. Who received answers from people who had been positioned to see things that the primary umpire had missed. And who issued a warning to the Pirates catcher with the formal weight of an official on-field warning that told everyone present that what had just occurred was being noted and would not be repeated without consequences. It was repeated. The ejection came 40 seconds later. Dave Roberts was at the press conference before most of the organizational response had been publicly articulated. He sat at the table with Ohtani beside him. That decision, to have Ohtani present at the press conference, was not accidental. Roberts understood that the room would want to see Ohtani. Would want to read his expression and his posture and the quality of his composure to understand how the person at the center of what had happened was processing it. What the room saw was not what it might have expected. Ohtani was calm. Not performing calm. Not the visible effort of suppressing something that wanted to express itself differently. Genuinely, almost completely calm in the way that suggests a person who has already decided how they intend to relate to the situation and finds that decision uncomplicated. A reporter asked Roberts to describe what had happened from his perspective in the dugout. Roberts took a moment before answering. He said he had seen enough in real time to know that something was wrong before he had the full picture of what it was. He said the warning from the crew chief had confirmed what he suspected. He said the ejection that followed had confirmed it further. And he said that the video, which he had reviewed before coming to the press conference, had confirmed everything completely. His voice was measured. But the measurement was doing considerable work. He said that what the catcher had done was beneath the standard of professional conduct that MLB expected from everyone inside the game. He said it directly and without the softening language that press conference responses sometimes use when the speaker is trying to be accountable without being inflammatory. He said it was cowardly. That word in Roberts' voice carried differently than it had in the accounts of the witnesses who had used it first. Coming from a manager at a press conference, directed at a specific player on a specific team for a specific documented act, it was not a characterization. It was a conclusion. Then someone in the room mentioned the apology. The Pirates catcher had submitted a written apology through the league office. That was part of the formal process that the investigation had required. An acknowledgement of what had occurred and an expression of regret directed at Ohtani personally and at the game of baseball more broadly. The reporter asked whether Ohtani and Roberts had read it. Roberts nodded. He said they had both read it before coming to the press conference. The room waited. Roberts looked at Ohtani. A brief look. The kind that passes between two people who have already discussed what comes next and are confirming that the discussion still holds. Ohtani leaned slightly toward the microphone. He said he had read it. He said he accepted it. The room absorbed those 3 words in the silence that followed them. Because they were not the words that the room had assembled expecting to hear. The situation had a gravity that made acceptance feel like something that required more space around it than 3 words provided. The insults. The trick. The warning. The ejection. The MLB investigation. The fine. The terminated contract that had ended a professional career with a finality that no apology could fully address. And Ohtani had read the apology and accepted it. He said one more thing before the room found its next question. He said that what had happened was behind him. That the game continued. That the people who needed to make decisions about consequences had made them and that those decisions were not his to carry. He said he had a game to prepare for. The fine had been significant. The terminated contract had been the kind of ending that a professional career does not recover from. The Pirates organization had released a statement that used language suggesting the decision had been mutual while communicating clearly that it had not been mutual in any meaningful sense. A career had ended in the space between a cowardly trick and a field-level camera pointed at exactly the right angle. MLB had reviewed the video and made its decisions with the completeness that the video demanded. And Shohei Ohtani had sat at a press conference and accepted an apology from the person who had directed all of it at him and then said he had a game to prepare for. As if the most important thing about the day was still the baseball. For Ohtani, it probably was. It probably always was. And that, more than the ejection or the fine or the terminated contract or the apology or any other element of what this day had produced, was the thing that nobody in that press conference room was fully prepared for. The person at the center of all of it was already thinking about the next game. He had always been thinking about the next game. That was never going to change.